Okay,
All right.
streaming live.
And we are rolling, folks. Yep. All right. Everything is coming through pretty good. I should be ready to roll there. All right. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 9 of TV Memories, Arknolia and the Doctor, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight we're taking a look at a TV series from the 1960s, revamped in the 1990s and the early 2000s, pretty much the same as The Twilight Zone. Only the difference is this one was a lot more bizarre than The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it used a lot of monster themes
Yeah,
because for some reason they felt like that was something that they needed to approach.
yeah, a lot of freaky, and they had a lot more freakier monsters that they had on The Twilight Zone. Now we're talking about, of course, The Outer Limits, and we all know it's a familiar introduction. We now it has earned it a very loyal audience in the very first season. It was so devoted that a lot of people were reported to take a TV set with them if they had to be away from home. That's how wild this TV series was. They would not miss episode as home recording did not exist just yet. This is years way before the VCR would emerge.
Right.
Remember, this is the 1960s. The second season, however, fared poorly in the real Nielsen ratings after moving from Monday to Saturday night, going against Jackie Gleason's program there.
Well, it's funny how networks do this. They have a show that's wildly successful, doing real well in a certain time slot, and then they say, "Oh, hey, let's move it to this dead spot. Maybe we can liven it up." Well, it really doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
They've done it with more shows than I can remember, where it starts good, it's real hot, doing real well, and then they say, "Oh, let's move it to this dead spot." They move it to the dead spot, and the show dies. They get a
yep,
few viewers, but not a lot.
I know. And now the series itself aired on ABC. It was, of course, from of course, it started many. Let me look it up here. Son of a name goat. It started from 1963 to 1965 at 7:30 Eastern Time p.m. on Monday nights, and it was often compared, as I mentioned, to the Twilight Zone, but a lot greater emphasis on the sci-fi genre and its stories, more than just stories of fantasy or the supernatural matters. Now,
Yeah,
of
because
course,
actually, the Twilight Zone had a lot of stories that were just stories. There
yeah,
wasn't anything about them other than they were just stories.
and then a lot, of course, as we know, the series was revived in 1995 and aired on the Showtime network from 95 to 2000, and then later on in 2001 on the Sci-Fi Channel until its cancellation in the following year. And in 1997, the Zanti Misfits, an episode which was one of its earlier episodes,
Which I
was
noticed you
ranked at
picked it up for your thumbnail.
yep, was on a boy, those bugs creeped me out, man, when I saw them as a kid, man.
Oh, yeah.
It was yeah, it was ranked 98 on TV Guide's 100 greatest episodes of all time. And as of April of last year, a new revival was slated to be in the works on another premium cable network. But so far, we have yet to see that there.
It's funny, the anthology theme has had a lot of pretty decent anthologies. I mean, I can think of the Alfred Hitchcock show, which came even before those Twilight Zone or Outer Limits. And Boris Karloff had one called The Thriller.
Oh, yeah.
Then there was Amazing Stories. I mean, there's been a lot of really good anthology type shows.
Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Oh yeah, Tales from the Dark Side.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, we could.
Are You Afraid of the Dark, which ran on the Nickelodeon network for many years in the 80s?
Yeah, we could cover a lot of ground going over an anthology on these shows.
Man, there's lots of them. Oh, yeah, we cannot forget The Hitchhiker, also on HBO.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, the fun thing about The Hitchhiker, if you want to look at it that way, was because it was on HBO, there's some nudity in that show.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, a lot of naked chicks in that here
Same
and
with The
there.
Outer Limits on Showtime.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it was, of course, obviously it's a cable network. They get entitled to get away with it there.
Yeah, those particular pay-per-views type things, well, it's not per view, but pay channels, that sort of thing happened.
Yeah. Now, of course, as we all know, the introduction, as we know, the Twilight Zone. It would open with the preview clip followed by a controlled voice narration, was mainly ran over visuals of what is called an oscilloscope, using an or George Orwell type of theme of taking over your television. The
Yeah,
narration ran as follows, quote unquote, there is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can control the range, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur or sharpen it to a crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly, and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery that reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits. And after the end of the episode, they say, we now return you to your control to your television set to you. Until next week, at the same time, when the control voice will take you to the outer limits. Now, later episodes will use one of two shortened versions of that introduction. The first episodes, the intro and on title screen was followed by the narration with no cold open or preview clip. The control voice was done by actor Vic Perrin.
yeah, that whole bit was really memorable.
Yeah, it was. I know there was. I believe it was also a sampled a couple times by this Boston-based industrial group called Manufacture. They sampled a couple lines of that original introduction onto a song called, what was it called? There was a Passion for the Future. It's from an album they put out in 1989 called Terror Vision, which I do recommend everybody out there. There were about total 49 episodes were produced. It was one of many series that was a lot of ways influenced by, of course, the Twilight Zone and science fiction theater, although it ultimately proved influential in its own right. In the unaired pilot, the series was called Please Stand By, but ABC rejected that title. And of course, NBC would later approve it for their 1979 comedy series. Series creator Leslie Stevens retitled it The Outer Limits with a couple changes. Now, the pilot aired as the premiere episode, the one titled The Galaxy Being. Now, writers for the program included creator Stevens himself, Joseph Stefano, who later was who was a screenwriter for Psycho,
Hmm.
who was also the season one producer and creative guiding force. Stefano wrote more episodes on the show than any other writer. Robert Town, who would later win an Oscar, screenwrited the one called The Chameleon, which was the final episode for season one.
Right.
Two especially notable season two episodes, Demon with the Glass Hand and Soldier, were written by Harlan Ellison, while the
Yeah.
former episode winning a Writers Guild Award. The second one was several years the only episode of The Outer Limits available on Laserdisc. Now, of
Yeah.
course, it featured a lot of sci-fi and it had a lot of horror in it and mixed in as well. They were more focused on hard science fiction stories, dropping the recurring scary monster of season one. Each show in season one had to have a monster or a creature as a critical part of the storyline.
Except for a couple of them.
Yeah. Now, writer and producer Joseph Stefano believed that this element was necessary to prove fear and suspense at least a center for plot development. This kind of story element became known as the bear. This device, however, was mostly dropped in the second season when the Stefano left the show. Now, two episodes in the first season without this bear were Controlled Experiment and The Forms of Things Unknown. The first, actually, The Forms, was shot in a dual format as science fiction for the Outer Limits and as a thriller for the pilot of an unmade series titled The Unknown. Actor Barry Morris, who starred in Controlled Experiment, states that this episode was made as a pilot for an unrealized science fiction slash comedy series. It was the only comedical episode of that whole program.
Yeah, and it actually is pretty good. Um, Another episode that I don't think had a bear in it was the 100 Days of the Dragon, but we'll get
Yep,
to
I'm
that.
looking at now. And the Borderland. And before the Bear Convention was established, a couple episodes of season two with a bear were Keeper of the Purple Twilight, The Duplicate Man, The Probe. Now, these bears often appear at the conclusion of the episodes of season two. Counterweight, The Invisible Enemy, Cold Hands, Warm Heart. Now, the bear in the Artifacts of Fear was the monstrously altered alien Leoton, was judged by some of ABC's local affiliate stations to be so frightening that they broadcasted a black screen during this creature's appearances, effectively censoring some of the show's last act. And in some parts of the U.S., the C10 footage was tape delayed until after 11 p.m. at nighttime. And others, it was not shown at all.
Yeah, and it's funny because looking back on those episodes as a kid, they some of them were scary, but really looking at them now, they're not all that scary. I guess we've gotten desensitized to that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's something that happens when you grow older there. For example, when I was a kid, Saturday afternoon, we would have these creature features on the syndication TVs. They showed these American International movies which had Peter Cushing, P, Christopher Lee. It would have a Vincent Price. It was movies like monster movies, Dracula movies, like The Mask of the Red Death. A
Oh
couple of
yeah,
movies that I remember, all those kind of movies. Um, what was that one with Vincent Price? The Oblong Box. That was one of them. Now, the introduction that for those for this program, Chiller Feature, I think it was called. It would have a skull looking at right you from the TV set with a laser light, flickering, going behind it, and that would freak
right.
me the hell out as a young kid. That did.
Yeah, yeah,
Later on, time, all of a sudden, I discovered heavy metal. I look at that nowadays. It's like, eh,
yeah. It's kind of weird how we change as we go.
it's kind of funny. Years back, we used to be scared of skulls as a kid. Years later, in our teenage years, we wear them on the front of our shirts and have them for tattoos.
Yeah, yeah. But the individual episodes, like you
Yes,
mentioned earlier, the first episode, the Galaxy Being, was
correct.
actually a pretty decent, was a good episode. It had a little message going on in it, but basically, it's about a guy that owned a radio station that he's experimenting with researching electromagnetism and the microwave background noise, and he makes contact with an alien from the Andromeda Galaxy on his 3D set.
Ah,
And the alien's also working in secret because, as he tells that guy, that they're a danger to the other galaxies, and they kind of talk about a little bit about things to each other. And the alien tells him, "Don't turn your power up to your station all the way up because that will cause a problem." And this guy gets called away to some kind of banquet by his wife, so he has to go to that. And the disc jockey of the gas station uh, at the radio station
Yeah,
turns the power all the way up, which pulls the being into Earth. And the alien doesn't want to hurt anybody or do any damage, but because of the fact that he's electromagnetic and all that stuff, he's causing,
you
he
know,
just, him being there is causing problems. And of course, you know how the authorities are. They got to get it together and go attack the guy and get rid of him.
correct.
And the guy tries to figure out a way to get the alien back, and somehow his wife gets shot by the police accidentally, and the alien saves her life and then issues a warning to the gathering crowd, telling them, you know what we can do now, don't mess with us, or something like that. I don't recall what the exact message was, but like I said, it was a good episode. It was enjoyable,
Yeah,
and it
very.
set yeah, and it set the tone kind of for. Uh, well, I've seen all 49 of them several times.
Wow. So what is that one episode where it's supposed to be a man, an astronaut in outer space, and he encounters this white, stringy looking thing there, and it has this shrieking, eerie sound to it, I guess.
I don't remember the name of it, but we'll probably come to that. But yeah, I had that one too.
That freaked me out as well when I saw that, man, as a kid. Wow. Now, the various monsters and the creature from the very first season and most of the props were developed by a loose knit group organized under the name Project Unlimited. Now, members of the group included Hua Chang, Gene Warren, and Jin Danforth. Now, the makeup was done by Fred B. Williams along with another one named John Chambers. Now, the characters and the models, believe it or not, from those episodes have been sold as models or action figures in the 1990s and the 2000s. A very rarity of limited editions have been as model kits to be assembled and painted by the purchaser, created by Dimensional Designs, and a smaller set of out-of-the-box action figures sold in larger quantity by Sideshow Toys.
Huh.
Now, Dimensional Designs even produced a model kit of the Megazoid from the Duplicate Man, and both had created a figure of Gwendoline as an evolved man in the Six Finger episode there. I hope I
Oh yeah,
pronounce that name right. GwYllm, I think it is called.
yeah. We'll get to that episode because it's worth discussing.
Yeah.
The second one actually is pretty good too. It was called The 100 Days of the Dragon, which is interesting because it's about an East Asian government that's planning to take over America by replacing White House officials and leading
Yeah.
corporate executives with duplicate agents.
Wow. It's kind of like
Kind of
sounds
makes you
like
wonder, doesn't it?
so makes you wonder exactly. We got all these rappers talking about painting the White House black. We got all these groups like Antifa, was sending threatening to take over. We got all these anarchist groups out there wanting to destroy the White House to get rid of Trump or Biden, whoever's in charge up there. And this kind of makes sense there. Now, here's something else. This program also had an influence on Star Trek. Now, a few of the monsters would reappear in the Star Trek series in the 1960s. The movie Microbe, Beast, and the Probe was later modified and used as a creature named Horta in the episode titled "The Devil in the Dark." It
Yeah,
was
the rock
operated by
creature.
yeah, the same actor did this. The ion storm seen in The Mutant, a projector beam that shining through a container containing glitter in liquid separation, became the transporter. In fact, in the Star Trek series there, I guess what it was. That's how they got that noise there. And the black mass from the Duplicate Man used by Dr. Leoton in the Conscience of the King.
Right.
And the Megazoid from the Duplicate Man, and the what's this one called, Eprian from Second Chance, was seen briefly near Captain Christopher Pike and other cages in the Star Trek pilot the cage.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And here's something else. The process to make the pointy ears for a Spock was used was reused in Star Trek as well. Actually, that was originally done in the Six Finger, and it was reused in Star Trek just as well, as I mentioned. Lead actors who would later appear in the regular cast of Star Trek included Leonard Nimoy, who appeared in 2 episodes, William Shatner, who also appeared in The Twilight Zone, as we all know. He appeared in an episode called Cold Hands, Warm Heart as an astronaut working on Project Vulcan.
Yeah.
Act- Actors who would subsequently appear in the regular supporting cast of Star Trek were in Grace Lee Whitney, Robert Justman, and Hua Chang for the production of Star Trek. And additionally, Michael Ansara, who appeared in the episode Soldier, would later guest star as a Klingon Commander Kang in the original and spin-off series.
Yeah, there's a lot of ties on these type of shows.
Yep. And also, by the way, Weird Al Yankovic borrowed he had a song called UHF. Remember the movie from
Right.
1989? You know, he has a couple references from the Outer Limits and narration. Don't you know we control the horizontal, we control the vertical too? That's in the lyrics of the song there.
Right.
Hmm. Now there was also a lawsuit talking about this here. Now Harry Ellison contended that inspiration for James Cameron's Terminator had come in part from Ellison's work on the Outer Limits. Cameron conceded the influence. Ellison was awarded money and end credits mentioned in the original first Terminator in 1984, stating the creators wished to, quote, acknowledge the works of Harlan Ellison.
Right.
Cameron was against Orion's decision and was told that if he did not agree to the settlement, they would have to have Cameron pay for all the damages if Orion lost Ellison's suit. Cameron replied that he had no choice but to agree with the settlement, and there was also a gag order as well to put forth.
The third episode is called The Architects of Fear. This one's really good to watch.
Yeah.
It's about a group of scientists that basically they know that there's stuff going on and they're worried about a nuclear holocaust, and they said, well, we need to get the worlds to come together to fight a common enemy. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an alien and have this alien come to Earth, and the Earth will have to band together to fight them. And so they decide they're going to physically transform one of them into this alien being to stage a fake invasion.
Wow.
And basically they drew straws, and the guy that drew the straw was one of the youngest guys there. Actually, it was Robert Culp.
Yeah, who would later star with Bill Cosby in I Spy, believe it or not.
Yeah. And the alterations basically would affect him completely. Well, he wouldn't be human anymore, basically. And it tells what happens when they go through all of this. And he happens to have a little complication, which is his wife, who is now pregnant, and he finds out after he started the process that's irreversible. And he finds out because he overhears her talking to the scientists, because obviously she can't see what's going on. And it's a good story, and in the same token, it's poignant. So it's actually kind of a touching story too.
Yeah. Now, I remember seeing only one episode. It was on a Sunday morning of the revamped Outer Limits in the 90s there. And the one I saw was it was some sort of I'm not too sure what the story was about, but one of the lead roles was Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Huh.
the former WWF, WWE, WCW wrestler. And
Interesting.
I was like, oh wow, interesting there, because he did a lot of acting with not with movies like Hell Comes to Frogtown, which was supposed was this cheesy ass movie,
And
sci-fi
actually,
movie
They
there.
Live, which was actually a good movie.
Absolutely, that was probably the biggest standout in a movie performances for the Hot Rod, because not just because it was directed by a well-respected director who also did his remake of The Thing, as well as probably the ultimate guy movie, Little Big Trouble in Little China. But it was also spoke out about how people learn from their environment to become one of them. When you think about it, if you grow up in a conservative neighborhood, you're going to be conservative. If you grow up in a liberal area, you're going to be a liberal. If you're just a stranger who just moved into any of these areas, chances are you're going to be just one of them. And I guess the aliens and They Live, they came down there, learned all the ways of greed, corporate, and they decided, to follow that path. So it makes a lot of sense there with that movie there. People learn from what they see.
Yeah. Another episode I want to kind of point out, it's a good one to watch, is we talked about it a while ago, The Sixth Finger.
Yes.
It's about a scientist who figures out how to speed up evolutionary mutation. And here's the guy's name, Willem
Yes.
Griffiths. David McCallum, who you know from The Man from Uncle and
Yep.
NCIS.
Correct.
He's a disgruntled local miner, and he volunteers for the experiment. And basically, the scientist speeds up the process and mutates the guy. And as his mental capacities increase, he somehow grows a sixth finger in each hand, which is weird when you think about it, because technically we only have four fingers and a thumb on our hand, but a lot of people call
Correct.
the thumb a finger.
Finger at times, yes.
I don't know
I'll be
why.
right back.
Oh, sure. And basically, while this process is going on, uh, the mutant takes over the experiment, and he has superior intelligence and telekinetic powers capable of great destruction. And he's thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to take revenge on the people here in this town because they ticked me off. And again, this is a good story. It kind of lets you know, I guess, what happens. You get a little bit too much power. And I guess I'll move on to another episode. One's called OBIT, which is the Outer Band Individuated Teletracer. Essentially, it's about a device that allows whoever does it to monitor all the people around him, and essentially, it's a device that was invented by an unearthly origin, and its purpose is to kind of control men. But it's that's a good episode to watch too. In their own ways, a lot of them are good to watch. But another one that's interesting is Corpus Earthling, which is essentially they look like rocks, and they're thought to be rocks, and no ordinary human can detect what they are except for one guy that has an implanted metal plate is hearing them, and he's not sure exactly what's going on, and the rocks kind of figure out, being aliens, that he's hearing them, and essentially they set out to kill him because they're wanting to take over Earth, and they're able to take control of people except for him because of the plate.
Yeah. I'm looking at the one of the most well-known episodes that really freaked me out. It gave me a little bit of nightmares as a kid. Of course, we're talking about Zanti Misfits.
Oh, we'll get to that one. That's a little later on.
Okay, definitely.
But that is definitely one worth watching.
Absolutely. All right,
And
anything else? Go ahead.
yeah, I was looking to see some of the other ones. I'm obviously skipping some.
All
Uh,
right, there.
but because I'm skipping them doesn't make them okay. We can go to the anti-misfits.
Okay, definitely. Because this one freaked me out. I would say before he got on the air, when I was looking at the thumbnail, I was like, an alien world dominates Earth, to provide a penal colony for its criminals. And these criminals are gross-looking, rat-sized, ant-like insectoids with almost human faces. Now, these are basically gangster ants. Ants with attitude, AWA. When you think about it.
Yeah, but essentially they land on Earth near a ghost town, and the military forces have been there to cordon off the place. And what happens is somehow a bank robber and his girl Friday or whatever they're called uh, bust in and cause a little bit of a problem. And basically, the bank robber he sets them off, and the misfits, the penal misfits, kill their guard, and then they go nuts and go all over the place in there. And basically, the military has to get rid of them, so they go out and they kill them one by one, and they kill all these little misfits and such.
Wow.
And essentially, after that, they're fearful that the control planet is going to do something to them because they killed all those misfits.
Yeah.
But instead, the control planet congratulates them, and it said that since we couldn't kill our own, we sent them
You did the
there.
job. Yeah,
Yeah,
send them there so we can kill them.
and and they said that they sent them there because you were the experts on killing, and
Mm.
so yeah, thank you. And
Thank
so
you. Did us a favor. You did our executions for us.
yeah, that's essentially what it amounts to.
I see. We'd be like, you don't have to thank us, but you do have to pay us.
Yeah, and the one you mentioned a while ago, controlled experiment.
Yes.
This was a pretty good one too, because basically they have a little monitor. Well, they have a little device the monitors do, and one of the researchers wants to go and see what's going on, and he wants to investigate the concept of murder. And so the agent uses the guy that's doing the research uses the agent, so they kind of want to go review this, so they have a device that can manipulate time. So they find a murder scene and they do it over and over again so they can kind of see what happens, what causes it, what because they're unfamiliar with it. And the agent, or not the agent, the researcher finds it unable to resist the opportunity to tamper with time. So essentially, what they do is they alter what happens each time they redo it, just to see what changes. And that's why it was supposedly a comedy episode, is because it basically covered that.
Um, Kind of funny, there's not much left on the Wikipedia. What I know was we should probably talk about the. Let's see if we could look it up here. The 95, the 90s revival.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking to see if there's some other episodes that are worth mentioning. Like I said, there's a pretty good bunch of them that are good to watch, and actually, I would suggest that this
Mhm.
is worth binge watching.
Okay, I'm looking up right here on the Wikipedia. Thank goodness for that. There was about 7 seasons altogether.
And oddly, I didn't see many of those.
All right. Well, like I said, I only saw only one there with, of course, Roddy Piper. There was a Sand Kings, Bo Bridges, who is the brother of Jeff Bridges. He plays a man named Dr. Simon Cress. His research for the government on Martian life is aborted because one of the specimens almost escapes into the natural environment. However, Kretz doesn't agree with the abandonment of the project and decides to continue his experiments on his barn. He strongly believes that the insect-like species are actually sediment, and he steals some sort of a sand containing Martian eggs from his lab, then creates a makeshift incubator to hatch more of these Martian life forms. In the meantime, Kress deals with growing discord with his wife, played by Helen Shaver, over financial troubles. His obsession with work and the stress of concealing the stolen alien life forms of the former supervisors of the government lab. Kress comes to believe that he is a god to his Sand Kings, and they build sand structures and reassemble his face. Now, the face is looking across, unlike the face on the Mars, which is looking up. Bitten by one of the Sand Kings, the obsession peaks as he alienates his wife, son, his father, played by Lloyd Bridges, kills his former supervisor by throwing him into the Sand King incubator, where the creatures, already starved by Kress as an experiment, completely devour him. In the end, Kress attempts to destroy all the Sand Kings but fails, and in the epilogue of the episode, a colony of Sand Kings is shown surviving in the wilderness.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's actually another pretty decent episode called The Children of Spider County.
Yep.
It's about a group of young prodigies that vanish, and nobody knows why or what happened to them. And essentially, it turns out they're all from the same area, and a government agent is sent to investigate it and finds that one of the young prodigies is still there. And basically, his alien patriarch is planning a family reunion somewhere other than Earth. So essentially, these were four alien children that were left on Earth, and the guy was coming back to get them.
Ah.
Which that's another one that's interesting.
Interesting there. Now here's something else. There's another episode. It's called I, Robot. And of course, it's a
Oh,
take on the book I, Robot, the sci-fi book. It was by Isaac. What's his name there?
Asimov.
Isaac Asimov, which later, of course, became the movie with Will Smith, the action movie, sci-fi movie there around the 90s, early 2000s. As of course, we all know the Alan Parsons Project album of the same name
Right.
there.
And I think there was a Twilight Zone episode named iRobot.
I
That
think in Soya, really, must be. I would not be surprised if it was because that book obviously did wonders for sci-fi altogether. There, it's no doubt about that. I'm
yeah,
looking for the one with that Roddy Piper in the episodes here, where I could find that. It had a lot of people was involved in this version of the Outer Limits. Perry King, you may remember him. Um, let's see, it also had Karen Allen, I guess, as well. Marlee Matlin, the deaf actress there,
right.
and also had Richard Thomas, who remember was John Boy Walton on the Waltons.
Yeah.
Wow. Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss?
Yeah, she was one of those that had a brief nude scene.
Wow. It was an episode titled Caught in the Act. And it's very rarely that we see Alyssa Milano nude, by the way.
Right.
Keep that in mind. And let's see, I'm trying to find the one with the Hot Rod. I know, for some reason, because I was a big Hot Rod fan there.
Yeah. And while you're looking for that, I'll occasionally mention another episode. There's
Go
one,
right ahead.
there's one called Second Chance. That was about a carny. He operated a carnival ride that looked like a spaceship, and an alien modified the thing and makes it real. And passing himself off as part of the attraction as a bird-like being, the alien invites aboard a group of people. all of whom refuse to face the stark realities of their lives. There's something
Wow.
about each of them. And he gets them in there and traps them on the spaceship, and he offers them an opportunity to colonize another planet, and to succeed they must overcome their own unwillingness to face their true natures. That's actually a pretty good episode.
Wow.
I,
Interesting here.
well, I'm not going to say any of them are bad, but
Nope.
some of them are better than others, 'cause that's just the way it works.
Now, I found this one here. It was in the second season, and it's titled "Mind Over Matter," and it features guess who? Luke Skywalker, the Joker, of course the voice who did Genie, the cartoon series in the introduction song there, Mark Hamill. He plays a man named Dr. Sam Stein. He develops a machine that allows a person to connect themselves directly to the brain of another and experience their thoughts and feelings. Intended for use with coma patients, he suddenly gets a chance to use it with a colleague who is comatose after a horrific accident. Stein intentionally thinks that his machine's application for communicating with the comatose Dr. Rachel Carter is a complete success. However, a mysterious pair of hands emerge to grab at Carter whenever Stein and Carter start becoming intimate. It is soon discovered that the pair of hands belongs to the machine itself. It has learned to love Stein. It is jealous of Carter. Stein's only two options are to disconnect the machine and show the machine that it cannot and will not love. Stein attempts to show the machine that it's not supposed to love by grabbing for what he thinks is a virtual representation of the machine. A Caucasian of the, in parentheses, a Caucasian male in the image of a disheveled mess, and smothering it within a equally virtual pillow, with goatee from Carter herself. Once he does that, though, the physical body of Carter dies. At this point, the machine reveals that it has been masquerading as Carter all along. The entity that he mistakenly suffocated was apparently the real Carter. In a rage, Stein destroys the machine and does not know how long the machine was mimicking the appearance of this Rachel Carter doctor, or whatever the pair of hands were Carter's or from the very start.
Right.
And here's another one called I Hear You Calling that started Ali Sheedy. Remember her from the Brat Pack of the 1980s?
In Short Circuit.
Yep, and so absolutely. War Games as well. She plays a reporter on her way to work when she overhears a cellular phone conversation with the removal of a controversial author. Her investigation reveals a trail of people who disappeared, leaving only a pile of ash behind, and the involvement of a man with strange violet eyes. After serious chases and narrow escapes, the alien hitman finally catches up with the reporter and reveals to her that the people he's been removing have been accidentally contracted a deadly alien virus. And he's been hunting them down in order to prevent the spreading of the virus to the rest of humanity.
Right.
Maybe we can get one of those hands to get rid of this COVID.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump back to the original. You mentioned Cold Hands, Warm Feet, Heart,
Yes,
which starred Shatner.
yes.
And basically, what it announced to is after completing the first manned mission to orbit Venus, Shatner's character returns to Earth and has recurring nightmares and an increasing inability to stay warm.
Mm.
His conditions continue to worsen, and they result in
Mhm.
a peculiar webbing on his fingers. And only after his nightmares become more vivid is he reminded of an unrevealed alien encounter in the Venusian atmosphere.
Ah,
The doctors they suspect that he's being genetically affected by this mission, and they basically spend the rest of the episode trying to cure him before the mutations take completely over, and I guess he turns Venusian.
yeah. Oh, here's an interesting one here titled Fallen Star. It stars Sheena Easton,
Huh.
the singer, who I remember she had a couple acting experiences on Miami Vice during the near the end of the last season, there, playing the wife of Sonny James Crockett.
Yeah.
Here's one here. Pop singer Melissa McCammon is about to commit suicide by ODing on drugs. With her once meteoric career at a standstill and her husband, played by Stanley Berkeley, cheating on her, she sees no hope. Then she encounters Rachel, an ardent fan from the future. Rachel is a time traveler and an uninvited tourist in Melissa's body. She tells Melissa that her music inspired her future fans to resist the total elation. What's it called there?
Annihilation.
No, it's not that. Total literation takeover, which will succeed if she dies now. Meaning that if you die now, all this calamity will happen with you because you're the only one that could stop this with your music or your words there.
Right.
However, special authorities are out to punish Rachel for her crime, as time traveling and using a host body plus the changing of a past is considered a serious offense she must take care of. The authorities from the future want Melissa dead and resort to anything, including murder, to perverse her vision of the past. The final scenes show Melissa on the stage in her friend Janet's body, singing to an audience.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting there. A
I
couple
mean,
other people. Oh, I'm sorry there. I'm looking at some of the people who are starting here. You heard of the name Glancy Brown?
I'm not familiar with that name.
Not though, but I think I heard it a couple of times. Oh, Brent Spinner
Oh,
from a Star
Brent
Trek The
Spiner.
Next.
Yeah.
Brent Spiner,
Data.
yes, he started in the Deprogrammers episode there in the second season there, and of course, let's see here. Neil Patrick Harris. He's an episode titled From Within.
Yeah.
And Joanna Gleason, I think you may have heard of her.
Hmm.
And also, she was in an episode titled Inconstant Moon with another doctor, not actually a person playing the doctor, Michael Gross, who played it, the father in Family Ties with Michael J. Fox and Justine Bateman.
Yeah. They both these outer limits iterations had a lot of big people in them. That at the time they may not have been
Yeah, well,
big,
not necessarily big.
but they certainly became
Were
big.
big at that time. Yeah, absolutely. Well-known names, basically put. One episode titled Vanishing Act featured John Cryer, who, as you remember, starred in a couple of teen movies as well as co-star on Two and a Half Men, and now as Lex Luthor in the Supergirl, the CW series. David Hyde Pierce, who remember was on the Frasier TV series. He was in an episode titled The Sentence.
Yeah. And I just ran across another one in the first iteration of Outer Limits called Demon with a Glass Hand that you mentioned a while ago.
Yes.
And this is the Harlan Ellison story. And
Ah,
essentially, it's about a guy that has no memory of his life beyond 10 days ago. And his left hand, made of glass, seems to be a speaking artificial intelligent computer. Three of the fingers are missing, and they got to be found so that he can figure out what his purpose is. And he's being hunted by human looking aliens that essentially they tell him that they're all from 1,000 years in the future, where Earth has been conquered. A plague has destroyed all life, and all humans have mysteriously vanished.
wow.
Trent successfully recovers the three missing fingers and discovers he is not actually a man, but a robot.
Wow. Wow.
And within his abdomen, stored on a gold wire, are the human survivors of the alien invasion of the future, whom he must safeguard until the events of the future have become the events of the past and the plague is dissipated. So
Uh,
essentially, it sounds like a Harlan Ellison story. I mean, Harlan Ellison was a strong believer in, oh, what, how can we, Harlan Ellison's a good writer.
Here's one that's interesting. There was a thing called the Revelations of Becca Paulson, and it was based on the story the same name by Stephen King, believe
Hmm.
it or not. Becca Paulson accidentally shoots herself in the head while watching a soap opera. The bullet lodges in her brain and begins to have some strange effects. In a stroke of luck, the bullet doesn't kill Becca, but her severe brain damage causes her to hallucinate that the picture of a tuxedoed stranger on top of the TV who calls himself the 8 by 10 man. In the original story, it was a picture of Jesus talking to her.
Hmm.
Under the advice of the 8 by 10 man, Becca eventually decides to kill her worthless husband in a bit of what they call damage salvatory, yeah. Rigs up the television under the instructions of the 8 by 10 man to deliver a fatal electronic pulse to whoever touches the knob. Like you touch this, you get electrocuted.
Right.
Bzzz. Now, Becca, in the end, tricks her husband into touching it. But soon as he begins to fatally be electrocuted, she suddenly realizes what she has done and tries to save him. All she does is, after the circuit, by touching him, and the two fall dead, the victim of a tragic quirk of fate that was, in the end, far from lucky. Now, the name Paula Becca Paulison was also featured in the Stephen King book The Tommyknockers from 97. No, 87, my bad.
Wow.
And this one episode, Music of the Spears, features Kristen Dunst. You remember her
Hmm.
from what's it called? Bring It On, a couple others. The Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just ran across another episode on early Outer Limits called
Yeah.
iRobot.
Oh, yeah. The one we just talked about there.
Right.
I wonder if it's related to the original story there or something, a take of it.
In the credits, they don't credit the original story, which is kind
So
of weird.
which must be original story there under Dan there. Melvin Van Peebles, he's a actor, accomplished director. And we know his son Mario Van Peebles very well. He directed this one episode called Bodies of Evidence, which a crew at the space station began to see visions of loved ones or enemies that lured them to their deaths. After three crew members died, the remaining two, including Captain Clark, escaped to Earth, where Clark is accused of murdering his crew. His ex-wife defends him by suggesting that the crew was driven insane by the experimental chemical known as Sorosine.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like I don't know if it's a trial that comes afterwards or whatever it was there. Hmm. And I'm looking at the stuff for episode 4 right now, which came out in
Uh,
'98.
the only two-part episode was one called The Inheritors, which basically starts out about four U.S. Army soldiers with nothing in common other than having served in Korea and been shot in their heads, cheat death, each attain an IQ of over 200, and they suddenly start working together on a mysterious project. And
I think Joe Cronin is in the chat right now, man. Hey Joe, if that's you, feel free to call in. We'll definitely take your call, dude.
oh,
Yeah, come on in, Joe. We're happy to have you on this discussion here. I'm looking at this one episode here.
well, let
It's
me finish
titled.
on the one I had.
Go ahead.
And essentially, a intelligence officer discovers that what they're doing is they're building a starship and they're recruiting handicapped children to live on the ship.
Oh,
And he's afraid that these children are going to be victims of alien abduction. And then the second half of that two-parter, the guy locates the spaceship, which is protected by a force field, and confronts the men, begging them to turn the field off and release the captive children. And they then tell him that the children are not captives and that the superior alien intelligence behind their project has healed the children of their handicaps and needs the children to inherit and continue their culture when their dying species becomes extinct. If the children remain on Earth, their handicaps will return. Outcast on Earth, the children and the enhanced Earthmen have voluntarily agreed to leave Earth for a new world and preserve the legacy of the aliens.
Interesting there.
Yeah, it's a good
Now,
episode.
yeah, I'm looking at this one episode. Here's one called Relativity Theory. And guess who stars in this one? Melissa Gilbert
Huh.
from Little House on the Prairie, all those some of those Hallmark movies there. And also tried to run for some sort of a political office in my home state of Michigan a couple of years back there. I'm going to see if we can get Joe Cronin on here. I'm going to message him on Skype.
Okay. And there are other good episodes. I mean, obviously we can't cover all of them.
I know there was a lot, but we can. Let's see. We can. I'm going to message him. So it's
Uh,
supposed to be live right now. I guess right now because right now he's watching AEW right now for his review later on tonight.
yeah, it just started.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. There's another one here called The Premonition, which is about
Yes.
a guy that's flying in a very rocket powered research aircraft. And essentially, he kind of crashes. His wife shows up, and they're trapped, well, it says 10 seconds ahead of their time, and watch time unfold to catch up with them at about 1 second every 30 minutes. So it's moving very slowly.
All right.
And in the time left before returning to sync with normal time, they 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 see their daughter is about to be hit by a truck. But to stop the accident could mean to stay forever stuck in time. So they got to figure out what they got to do to save their daughter and then get back. And essentially, they figure out a way to stop the truck from hitting their daughter, and they essentially go back. They get back in their spots, and time catches up to them, and they're fine. Everything's fine, and they go back to the base, and they find that the truck was stopped just in time before it hit their daughter, and she lived.
Wow.
And basically, they saved her, but nobody knows they saved her. I mean,
Wow.
because they were moving at an incredibly fast speed.
Wow. I'm looking at this other episode here. You remember the name Gregory Harrison?
Yeah, I
I
forget
know he
what
was
he
in the
did, but
episode. Yeah, I forgot myself, but I think it was one of those primetime soap shows that aired on either CBS, I'm thinking. And I know he started on a series on that channel there.
yeah,
There was one called The Joining, which featured C. Thomas Howell, Jeffrey Jones, and this lady I'm not too familiar with, Amanda Tapping. But we know Jeffrey Jones from his work on Ferris Bueller's Day Off as a principal, Howard the Duck, and a couple others. And we, of course, remember C. Thomas Howell.
yeah. And actually,
Yeah.
I've heard the other actress's name, but I don't recall why.
Um, who, Amanda Tapping?
Yeah, but I don't
Hmm.
recall why or how I've heard the name.
Let's look it up here. Let's see here. She's a British Canadian actress and director. She's best known for in the portraying Samantha Carter in the sci-fi series Stargate SG-1,
That's
Stargate
where I
Atlantis,
probably
and
heard her.
Stargate Universe.
That's probably where, because I used to watch
There
Stargate.
we go. I remember it being the late nights on the Sunday evenings when I would come home from a Lip Six nightclub. I would tune on and see what was on the tube there, watch that for a while, and one of those that show would be one of the programs on that time of night.
Yeah, the SG-1 was good, and I liked Atlantis, and I don't recall if I ever saw Universe, but that was actually a pretty good show.
There's this one called Monster. It starred Robert Guillaume. You remember him
Yeah, Benson.
from Benson, the TV show Benson? He also took over the lead in the Phantom of the Opera, play, blah, 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 bleh. Broadway musical there as
Right.
the lead. Yeah, and we also have let's see a couple others there. Oh, another star from the series, Benson, Renee
Yeah,
Auberjonois, I think
Aberjoy's,
it
I
is.
think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So he played a Clayton Bendigot. What's that guy's character's name from that show?
Well, he played the French aide or whatever. Uh, Basically, he played the advisor to the
Governor.
yeah. And
Yes.
also, you may remember he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was the
Yes, I
changeling.
remember. Yes. Yes, I remember that. Well,
He was the changeling guy.
I see. Yeah. Interesting there. Of course, let's see. I'm looking on here. Let's see here. Got a couple here just on season 5 right now. I'm waiting to see if um Joe is on air. Joe, if you're listening, ah, Real Fuck TV is on in the Midnight Chat. What's up, Minnesota Vikings fan? What's up, dude? We're trying to see if Joe Cronin will probably join the program here. Hey, Minnesota, you want to jump in on the show here to add to what we're talking about here? Just let me know in the chat or on Skype or whichever if you want me to add you, dude. All right. So let's see here. Oh, by the way, before that, let me interrupt here for a second. Did you get a call from a guy named Danny MT recently?
Yeah, but I didn't take it.
Okay, because Danny MT messaged me on Skype late last night while I was sleeping, and he was trying to get a hold of you, but apparently what it was he didn't understand that I invited him to call on our show when we're on the air together. I guess he probably wasn't aware about the program that we were doing. I guess he tried to call me twice yesterday, and of course late last and the night before as well. So was probably sometime soon we'll invite him on the show here, but I'll have to message him pretty soon there. There,
Well,
let him know.
basically, anytime that anybody can contribute to the topic at hand, I'm fine with them
Absolutely.
coming on.
Absolutely. The other side here, which is in the third season, stars Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
He's he plays Dr. Neil Eberhardt, a former boy genius gone bitterly to seed, studies brain damage in comatose patients, hoping to learn how the brain reroutes itself. Despite having a revolutionary new machine to work with, which is known as the neutral intercortex stimulation array, or NISA, the doctor is getting nowhere. And to make matters worse, his valued assistant, Vince Carter, just left.
Right.
All of a sudden, Neil has a breakthrough. The brainwaves of two patients who are comatose, Adam and Lisa, fall into sync while they hooked up to the NISA, and one of them whispers the other's name. Neil knows he's onto something and tells his boss, Marty Marty Kilgore. That's the name of the boss here. What
Right.
Neil does not know is that Adam and Lisa have landed in idyllic parallel subconsciousness and are fallen in love. And as Adam and Lisa get to know each other, Neil continues his research, now joined by his ex-girlfriend and colleague, Janice Claymore, played by Susanna Hoffman, just desperate to try the technique that other comatose subjects. Neil loses patience and makes the journey himself. After giving himself a calculated overdose of the fentanyl, what's that? Fentanyl?
Fentanyl sounds like.
Fentanyl, yes. He hooks himself to the NISA and launches himself into the world where Lisa and Adam are. He catches a glimpse, but he's pulled back at the last minute, leaving him more than determined to find a way to rescue his patients from the other side. But do they want to be rescued?
Right.
Or does because does Neil really want to join the other side? Kind of question there. Understandable. Probably getting so fed up with the world that's around you when it'll cross over to the other side, you know?
Right. Yeah.
All right, we got so many more up here that we could talk about here, but I think we may be running out of time if, unless you want to go on even further.
No, there are others worth covering, but like you said, we're kind of running short on time.
We are here, yeah. I also got to probably get ready to go to bed in about a couple hours here. I start at 8 in the morning there at my new job there. So once again, we are have a list of episodes from the 1990-2000 version of the Outer Limits there. Apparently, when that sci-fi program gets a lot of credibility but from fans and sci-fi legions all around, you can rest assured that the somewhat the elite actors around the Hollywood circuit will be aboard.
Yeah, it's funny they even did a remake of the Alfred Hitchcock show without Alfred Hitchcock,
Yep.
which is kind
Oh
of
yeah,
weird.
I'm not surprised.
Oh,
Not
that was
surprised.
another
That one,
anthology that was very good, and it lasted
oh
longer
yeah.
than any of them. I think it went 10 seasons. The
Wow,
original.
that's interesting. Wow, interesting. We got to cover that sometime
I
soon. Yeah,
think
that's for
so.
sure, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, like I said, we could spend the next 10 episodes on anthology shows. There are that many good
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, absolutely. There.
Well, we'll talk about it and figure it out, I guess.
Yeah,
We're not doing a show tomorrow night. Friday night we're gonna do the Who.
yeah, possibly. I'm thinking about possibly doing a 2-hour version of that, to make up for lost time, because I was
Well,
at work at that time there.
yeah, either that or just go as long as it we need to, because there's just a lot of material to cover,
Yeah,
and just see where it
I'm thinking
takes
the
us.
same thing there. Absolutely. I'm thinking the absolute same thing there. Definitely.
And we'll start that at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. No way.
7 a.m.,
I'm
7
not
p,
even up at
7 p.
then. 7
Yeah,
p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Central, and we'll cover the Who. And next
absolutely.
week, after I find out what the doctor's work schedule is,
Hmm.
Monday we'll do movie. We'll talk about what movie we want to do.
Yes.
Battlefield Earth went along pretty well, but
Yes, absolutely.
maybe we need to cover something similar. Tuesday we'll go back to music, and before we leave the British
And Friday.
invasion, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I definitely want to talk about the Yardbirds.
Oh yeah,
So we
definitely.
need to
We got to
probably do an
devote an episode to them because we all know what a lot of groups spawned after that. One of them being Led Zeppelin. Eric Clapton would later hook up with Cream, Derek and Anonymous, and become a successful solo artist. And of course, Jeff Beck would later form the Jeff Beck Group and do a string of albums, with Young Hammer as well. A couple
yeah,
solo
it's
records as well.
but they're definitely worth discussing because not only did they spawn the guitarists that started those other groups, they influenced a lot of other groups, and they were one
Yeah,
of the first hard examples of psychedelic.
yeah.
Uh, they started out as a blues band. They went into pop, sort of, but not really strong, and then they basically became a psychedelic band.
Rock psychedelic rock band. And we all know that, and I mentioned the story before behind their version of Dazed and Confused as
Right.
well. Right.
And then on Wednesday, we'll discuss another TV show and we'll think about a few possibilities. But I'm kind of thinking we need to stay with the anthology theme and do another one of the anthology shows.
Absolutely.
And I guess we just need to kind of think about which one we want to do.
I say we look at Alfred Hitchcock, definitely.
That sounds good to me. And that
Yeah.
one's big enough that it might take two, but we'll go with one and see what happens.
Okay, there. All right, that's going to close it out for this evening here. We're going to I'm going to get a couple of things done there, possibly something to eat there, and then later on turn in for the night and get ready for work tomorrow there. Now I start in the morning, so hopefully I should be able to get done in a reasonable time there to join Reels Fluck TV with Minnesota Vikings fan and his cousin Silver Roll Hunter. So that's going to do it for tonight. Our episode, TV Memories episode 9. Look at the Outer Limits TV series there.
Right.
All right. For Arknolia and myself, you guys and gals have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. That was